Welcome to the Empower, Create, Encourage podcast, dedicated to providing you with strategies and encouragement to improve the quality of your daily experiences. I'm here with Dr. Fred Moss, psychiatrist, author of Find Your Voice, and the founder of Welcome to Humanity. Many of us carry experiences, behaviors, or habits that make us feel unlovable or ugly. Sometimes we suppress it and it starts to feel overwhelming. Why do you think we learn to fear, hide, or even hate the parts of ourselves that we believe are ugly or unlovable?
That's a really great question. I think what we're really looking at is it goes back a long ways, but it doesn't go back to the womb. We're not born that way. It's conditioned. It's conditioned that way because, as a 1-year-old, as a 2-year-old, maybe as a 3-year-old, you're pretty much told over and over again how gorgeous you are. You're completely appreciated with everything that you're doing, everything that you're saying, all your advances, all your accomplishments. Then at some point you start being told that you're wrong and you start being told that you're bad. That you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be that. You shouldn't talk in school. You shouldn't get up, have fun. And we learn that there's such thing as right and wrong. We learn that there's such thing as good and bad, true and false. The idea is that, when mom's mad at us or when dad's mad at us or when the teacher or the police or some authority figure is upset with us, it's usually because we now have done something that we didn't even know was going to upset them to the degree that it did. And then we become unlovable or we become ugly at that moment to ourselves. We're like, well, I probably shouldn't say that ever again or anything like that. Maybe I shouldn't even think like that anymore. Or maybe I should keep this to myself. And if I ever do it again, maybe I should hide because I got in so much trouble the first time that I did it. Maybe I lost a friend or maybe my mom grounded me or something like that. So good and bad get well established. Now, this gets amplified in the school setting. What color X is on the top of the paper is a red X when you've done something wrong. We all know to sort of fear that red X. Get a green check mark, you're cool. Like you're on your way. Maybe I got 100%. But if you get a red X, you're not cool at all. You've learned that you've done something ugly or unlovable. The crack in the cement grows bigger and bigger as we go through life, and no one ever goes back to repair it. So the idea is that we really think there are parts of us that are unlovable. What's so interesting is when people are willing to be vulnerable enough to actually show their so-called unlovableness or their concern or their despair over considering themselves unlovable, it's when we actually fall in love with them. When people can come in touch with the parts of them that they don't like or the parts of them they think are not flattering or don't enhance their character, when people do that and they walk into that vulnerable, authentic self, it's like the most loving thing that someone can do. It's like we all get to relate, wow, he or she had the courage to actually speak to something that they are not proud of, that is part of them, or that they, clumsily did something or think something or said something that would otherwise leave them feeling self-depreciating or self-deprecating or self-loathing even. We just let that sit in because we think that once it's there, we are our thoughts and it can't be replaced. So there are times when I'm just like any other human after all. There's 8 billion of us just like each other. None of us know what the hell we're doing at all. Let's just face it. We just don't. We just do what the people do. With the people that we think we respect, that we want to be like, we do that. And we think that that's right when we do what a lot of people are doing or what our people are doing. I can get very upset with myself when I collapse myself with my thoughts. Recently as this morning, I woke up on the wrong side of bed a bit this morning and it was like, who am I? Why do I think I'm such a big shot? Why? I had 3 podcasts. You're my third of 3 today. And I had so many phone calls today. I can't even count them. And some of them are controversial. And maybe I didn't handle myself entirely perfect with that person. So I can call myself an idiot or a clumsy ox or whatever. There's something about self-loathing that is somehow in a weird way perversely rewarding. When I say I'm an idiot or I'm a jerk or I'm a fool or I'm immature or I'm wrong or I'm bad, there's something about that dead end nature of that statement that somehow is interesting to us. We're willing to go there and stop the car right on that spot of being self-loathing and self-critical. And as you said, ugly. And then, of course, translating to being unlovable.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier to go into self-loathing than self-love and self-acceptance. And I wonder if that's because sometimes people who are very secure in themselves can come off as arrogant or conceited, and we put so much shame around that in a society. Oh no, you have high and healthy self-esteem. That's actually not a good thing. You're too full of yourself. Do you think that could be a reason why? Or is
I
it
think
that
that
there's something about the role that is familiar?
I think that's a great inquiry. And I think that it's the horse and the cart or the chicken and the egg there. It's like which one really causes which one. If what we know is that we want company, we want people like us who are self-loathing too, because then we can like fraternize with them, then people who aren't that will look like non-resident aliens. We can't accept people who are, if we're poor, we don't like the rich. It's the same kind of thing in our emotional intelligence or in our growth and development. If in fact we're caught up with the nature that life sucks and so do I, then finding somebody who's found a smile or found a purpose or is up to something that looks like it's going to make a difference before they leave the planet. Maybe there's jealousy or maybe there's just a sense of being separate. The value in staying self-deprecating is more or less it takes away from the responsibility of realizing that you have all the tools to be extraordinarily excellent.
That's so profound. We can escape accountability. And that way, it's not just we tend to gravitate towards people that have similar interests and we're in that cohort. It's not just about belonging, it's also about we're shedding responsibility and that accountability. That's so brilliant. So I
Exactly.
believe that there are different kinds of ugly. Some form of it hurts us first, like low self-worth or unhealed trauma or shame. And unintentionally, they kind of bleed out into the way that we relate to our friends and our family. I also think there are more active, destructive forms of ugly abuse, manipulation, or predatory behaviors directed towards others as a way to manage that inner pain we have. What
Beautiful.
are two tools that you can teach us to help us identify the difference?
How would you describe the first one again?
It's unintentional. It's, oh, I have low self-worth or I have trauma
I
or I
see.
have low self-esteem. And then it bleeds out into how I relate to others. The second one is I'm intentionally hurting others to manage my own pain.
I like what you're saying that there's a couple speeds of ugly. I had never really thought about that before, but I think the best optimized intervention for either of those people is to get to the access of what you just said, which is being ugly in either case is almost the solution to the problem of dealing with the pain that's embedded in your unreconciled traumatic past. And so when we have an unreconciled traumatic past, then we have to deal with that pain one way or another. We may just get mad at the world and be that kind of violent crasher, or we may find ourselves just being ugly and to ourselves is what I hear you saying, and almost like just giving ourselves a bunch of heat about how we did stuff. Usually we're comparing to a standard that doesn't even exist, so we're comparing our insides with some other groups outside and saying I don't read as well as them, I don't present as well as them, I don't look as well as them, I don't dress as nice as them, I don't fit in as well as they do, or something like that. And that can lead to a sense of what use am I anyways? And I've been smothered, I've been stifled, I've been quieted one way or another, usually by me. Once I start feeling like I'm useless or worthless, it's very easy for me to stay on the track. I can find evidence for anything that I say in order to make myself right.
There's that self-confirmation bias. So, what do you think happens when we show each other our ugly and the parts of ourselves that we think are unlovable?
The connection that I get to make with serial criminals when I'm working in a hospital or working in a prison is so extraordinary. The level of healing that gets to bounce back and forth between us is unlike anything I've ever experienced. So something really happens at that moment for both of us. I get to see that you get to see that what I said, tickled you or hit you deep. And it's something really, really beautifully rewarding about the fact that we're just two humans bumbling through life and we're able to communicate with each other and share that frequency of taking that human connection. And we start realizing that kaboom that happens, that we often mistake that with love, by the way, or we maybe equate that with love. Who are you going to marry? You're going to marry somebody who gets you or who you get. Why are you going to marry him? Because it's the coolest thing ever. I want to lock this one down. This person actually gets me. I have a chance with them. I'm not going anywhere. I want this person in my life. I'm betting that I'm not going to find anybody anytime soon who's better than this person to be my partner for the rest of the ride.
Oh, I love that so much. The most beautiful thing is feeling loved and understood and seen
Yeah.
and valued. Like there's so much magic in that.
There's no medicine or treatment protocol or diagnostic procedures that come anywhere near the stratosphere of what we're talking about right here. This is so much more profound than anything that modern medicine has ever put together. The magic and the extraordinary discovery of what it really means
To be human. So, how can we begin to accept love and embrace those parts of ourselves that we reject, that we hate, that we hide? I'm very curious about the role that compassion and accountability play. How can we support ourselves in getting better with that? And how can we support the people that we love?
You can't give away something you don't have. You can't be with somebody in a form of love that you don't have for yourself. So love doesn't mean like on steroids. It isn't about liking someone so much that you love them. That's like a myth that came out of early childhood spin the bottle games or something. I don't know. When we can be compassionate with everything about ourselves, what's great about ourselves, what's terrible about ourselves, the things we do right, the things we do wrong, the things we don't even know how to do, the concerns and the regrets and the resentments and the self defiance and the disregard and pain and suffering. But when you get that, that's the beauty of life, is you get to choose between those things which really suck and those things which are really wonderful. Then you can apply that to who you are. When you can get that life in its grandest scheme includes things that are absolutely unspeakably terrible, then you can learn to love the unspeakable terrible part as being just another component of the life that we've been offered here. Is this the craziest life that one could possibly imagine? Yeah, until tomorrow. And then this will look really calm. So when we can get that the whole shebang is lovable, including the unlovable self, I guess that's what I'm really saying. The stuff that comes across like, ooh, I know you're talking more than some sort of surface thing that gets called ugly. When we can get beyond that and start realizing that those are just components of this remarkable, multidimensional, multifaceted, wild life of all levels, and that love is not just an extreme light. Love is just an appreciation for the presence of what's there and what isn't. And when you can get that, then you have the capacity to really be able to maybe love the things that you could even then love your scar or your difficulty being in a crowd or something maybe a little more internal. Even with the discomfort, it's as much a profound and acceptable and extraordinary part of life as anything that is magical and miraculous.
So, in your experience, what's the connection between silence and shame?
I've certainly never been asked that question, which is great. My experience in observing others who are clearly in a shameful situation, silence looks like the right answer at that point. I don't want to share. I'm embarrassed. I am afraid that if I told you, you might disregard me. You might throw me off the island. You might dismiss me. You might disrespect me. I might lose you as a partner. I might use you as a tribal member or a friend or even as a family member. Rather than risk any of those things, I'll just let this shame soak. The problem with shame soaking, of course, is that it can't be resolved if you just let it soak. Then it just becomes a stain, if you will, like a shame stain. I have an amazing wife. I guess that's probably clear because I couldn't be this cool if I didn't have an amazing wife.
Oh, I love that. We're
So
keeping that in. That's so
it's,
crucial. I think more people need to know that marriage is awesome.
it is. I definitely wouldn't be this cool. The relationship I have with Alexandra is totally different than the relationship I've ever had with anyone else. The love that we have for each other is not lust driven. It's not about liking each other so much that we love each other. There's something about just realizing the essence of the other person, getting that put together. So I don't think I answered your question because I actually forgot it in my musing. So help me, hit me up with it again.
I said, what do you think is the
Shame and
connection
silence.
between silence and shame? Yeah.
I don't think that silence causes shame, but I think shame invites silence. You're not getting anywhere unless you actually speak with somebody. I suppose that can be God if you want it to be, or your dog or something. So sometimes when someone's silent and in pain, and you can feel that energy over there in the frequency, there's like a probably faulty assumption that there's something there that they're guilty or shameful about. Silence in and of itself can be extraordinarily healing in its own right. Just sitting silent, even in the form of mindfulness or meditation, is wow, the access to peace and steadiness and groundedness that happens from just 20 minutes a day is so profound that the level of healing that takes place in the form of intentional silence.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose you could say that shame has a value that is also in its own right priceless, but I think what we're really talking about there, it's not somewhere you want to stay. Where it really becomes priceless is when it transforms itself into being reconciled shame. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and maybe even where it gets to the point where people lose their voice and
Mm.
a sense of who they really are. Where do you think people most commonly lose their voice? And how does that disconnection manifest in their daily lives?
So my second book is called Find Your True Voice. And this time you finally hit me up with something that I feel like I know something about. I think that, we learned how to not be our true self. Like we talked about at the beginning, when you get to be 3, 4, 5 and you get those check marks, in school, we learned how to become someone that we're not in order to protect the person that we are. We learned how to actually take on a persona that's not consistent with our core and real self. And then it served a purpose for that day. And then we thought, okay, we kept using it long after it became obsolete. The crack in the cement just kept on growing larger and larger over time, and no one ever came by to repair it. So the best place to find people who are not being their true selves is generally when they're concerned about the group or the tribe they're in, and they start actually thinking, saying, and or pretending to think, and then actually saying things that are misaligned with who they really are. It's so absurd
Mhm.
that we have reached a point where we are willing to actually say, as if we mean it, something that we don't believe. This is the best we can do when faced with that particular challenge. Tend to be somebody you're not, and to the point where you're actually speaking out loud things that you don't even believe.
Yeah. This cognitive dissonance is
Yeah,
so alarming. I believe this is one of the root causes of anxiety and people having low self-esteem and low self-worth. Not the only cause, but one of them. Because
pretty big.
when we are living in dissonance and we're saying and doing things that aren't aligned with our belief system, we feel bad because we are
Duplicity.
silencing who we actually are just for the sake of belonging. And I understand that a lot of people are afraid. There's a lot of fear that's prevalent in our society. You say the wrong thing, you're an outcast. You say the wrong thing, you're a bigot. You say the wrong thing. Like there's a lot of shame and fear that are working very well to keep you in this line. In your experience, how can labels, whether they're clinical, cultural, or personal, shape or stifle our true voice?
Once you get a label, once you accept, you didn't have a label till someone gave it to you. And sometimes that someone is you. So, once you realize, so you come into a doctor. So I don't use labels. I'm the undoctor. I undiagnose, unmedicate, and undoctrinate people. So I don't like using labels at all. I find them to be damaging and they produce a tunnel vision, meaning once I know I have a label, or once I think you're, let's say you or someone is schizophrenic or bipolar or something like that, I have a preconceived notion of what that really means based on stories I've told myself or heard up until now that are none of them are inherently accurate at all, not even a piece, none of them at all, not even a little. Once I get into that notion, that those labels are there and actually defining someone, then it really limits the capacity for me to see that person as the extraordinary human being that they already are. So all 8 billion of us are extraordinary, every single one, including the person that you don't think is extraordinary. That person's extraordinary too. You can get that people who are completely nasty and completely horrible and completely imprisoned with their own dissonance, just another amazing feature of what it really means to be human. The labels or the diagnoses usually are inaccurate anyways, or they're a way of grouping people together for some other alternative reason, ulterior motive. Doesn't do the person well, and frankly doesn't do you well to see that person as that label. You do have a diagnosis I've already picked up on, by the way. Your diagnosis is Alessandra Charlesworth.
I was so intrigued.
You
I was like, really? You got to tell me. This is fascinating.
you should be intrigued. You don't have any other diagnosis but that. I can tell you that. You don't have any other diagnosis that rivals that one. Everything else is made up.
Could you please walk us through the true voice exercise and what shifts
Mm.
people can expect when they practice it consistently?
It's a comprehensive exercise. The course itself is a really great course. It's like 6 modules and 18 sections and 54 questions. It's pretty awesome. So it can't really be synopsized in one sentence. But the way to do the true voice thing is just get in touch first with the idea that you're not speaking it. We are really good police for knowing when we're full of it. We pretend not to, but every single person knows when they're not saying the truth every time they say it. And some people are so good at it that because all they do all day is say half truths and non-truths, and they just are like aware of it, and then it becomes part of their fabric. But when you can come really aware of the fact where you're being inauthentic or we're ingenuine or not saying or being who you know yourself to be, You work on that. You start with authentic conversations with people in your inner circle. Start really say something that has yourself be vulnerable and see that the world doesn't end. Realizing that you are just like every other human who has already put a facade on themselves to define themselves and then present themselves in this crazy world. Can you be compassionate, accepting, and forgiving of yourself? Because that's really what's here to be had. The true voice notion is like really saying what you mean. Like ultimately, like I said, when you say something that's untrue, it doesn't protect you anyways. If you act like you're someone that you're not, you're still going to be dismissed. You're still going to be hated. You're still going to be disregarded. You're still going to, like, it didn't do anything that you hoped it would do. So it's not a very good plan in the first place. And then you start realizing that, and you start getting the deep and honest, like full scale protoplasmic pleasure of what happens when you're speaking your truest self, which isn't even your truest self, by the way. It's just your next effort at being your truest self. Because you can't really speak about yourself using this thing called language, because language is too linear and doesn't capture the essence of the whole experience. When that happens, and then you start being able to step out and, tell somebody that you love them, or tell somebody that you stole $5 from them 3 years ago, whatever. There's something very beautiful about being able to just confront the areas of life that are not authentic. There's all sorts of exercises that we can do including meditation, including gratitude, including creativity, including authentic conversations, or, watching even what we eat, or, doing some of the ancient martial arts or qigong, tai chi, or even yoga. Start really allowing yourself to resonate with that pure and honest frequency.
Why is creativity so crucial in reconnecting with our voice and healing our inner wounds?
Every person who makes it through the next minute just spent the last minute being very creative. That's just the way that goes. So when we can be really honest about the fact that we're not good or bad artists, of course, that comes from school, but we have our own capacity to be an artist, to be in the world of visual arts or performing arts, art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, and gardening. The whole idea of creativity is so extraordinary. Again, it allows me to express myself much broader than the single line thread that I'm calling my voice. So that's always here to step in and create a possibility of a self-expression that far exceeds what's there when you simply use words. There's just a value and a appreciation for the divine vessel that I am, that I didn't create the creativity. I became just a conduit for its expression.
What's the smallest possible step people can take to accept themselves, share their true voice, and feel more joy in their lives?
This question gets asked every so often, never as articulate as you just did. So I appreciate that. There might be nothing wrong with you.
There are a lot of things, trust me.
No, there might be nothing. There might be nothing wrong with you. That's the whole point.
Wow.
There really might be nothing wrong with you. Zero. The whole idea of wrong is a made up word. And so when you can get that there's nothing wrong with you, that opens up that possibility of true voice creativity and mental health and just, satisfaction in life. What if there really truly is nothing, not even that's wrong with you?
Wow. That's a wrap for today. Thank you for listening to the Empower, Create, Encourage podcast. If you like it, share it and subscribe for more. Remember, you're empowered to create the life, the love, and the reality that you want. Espero que tu día esté lleno de magia y alegría. Con mucho cariño. Nos vemos prontito.